What can I say about Increased Media? Increased Media is super top notch, high quality, very, very professional business. I'm excited every time that I see an event that Increased Media is a part of. And I'm also excited to say that Increased Media was involved in my single release for my song, What He's Done for Me. They were there for the concert and to run that. It was really great. I really appreciate Dion, the Radical Midwife. She is an incredible entrepreneur, and I'm very proud of how professional she runs her business. Even I attended a workshop recently, and from registering to the event to the end of the event, when she wanted us to submit a survey. We were handled very professionally. We were given information. The slides were given to us. There was so much given to us.
Well, hey, everybody. Happy Sunday and welcome once again. This is another Increased Media moment, and I'm super glad that you could join us this afternoon. If you had an opportunity last Sunday, we had an amazing time with a bunch of really phenomenal young people, an incredible hostess, Miss Jillian Lee, if you've not met her. And this week, we have not just Jillian Lee, but we have Mrs. Charity Chandler Cole. And I promise you, those two in one room is going to be electric. Not to mention these incredible young people, Mr. Miles Haynes, Mrs. Sante Dyson, and Hadassah Williams. I'm beyond excited. If we've never connected previously, my name is Dion. They call me the Radical One, and I own it. Today, I own it. Super excited about Rona and Riots. Super excited about the future of these young people, about the future of these young leaders. And I am absolutely convinced that the experience that you'll have on today with who they are, what they represent, and even their strong opinions about everything that they believe in, I think that you will not only be impressed, but I think that it will also inspire you in how to nurture and to engage our youth and young adults on today. And so, you guys, listen, with no further ado, before I do that, I'm going to ask if you would be kind enough to share and to make sure you tag a friend, start a watch party, whatever, however you connect with your tribe and those that are influenced and inspired by you. Please, ma'am, please, sir, be sure to share the thread. This is going to be a powerful discussion. And even if you're watching the replay, listen, share and share alike. So with no further ado, I'm going to bring our returning hostess, Miss Jillian Lee, to the platform. And I'm going to do it a little bit different than I did last week. Hey, Jill, welcome back. I'm also going to bring Miss Charity Chandler Cole to the platform. Hey, Charity.
Hello, everyone.
Hey. Happy Sunday. Jillian, I know you introduced yourself last week, but I want to give both of you all the opportunity just to let our viewers know who you are, where you're from, what you have your feet and hands involved in, and how they can get in touch with you.
Absolutely. Hello, everyone. So glad to be back with you for yet another week of Rona and Riots. We had an amazing time last week, and I'm excited about what we will do this week. As Ms. Dion said, go ahead and share and make sure that everyone is tuned into what we're doing this evening. My name is Jillian Lee. I'm originally from Fairfield, California. That's where I was raised. And I now live in Atlanta, Georgia, where I am a graduate student at Candler School of Theology. I'm in seminary at Emory University. And I'm also a youth minister here at Berean Christian Church, which is a church in Stone Mountain. And Dr. Kerwin B. Lee is my pastor. I'm so glad to be here. I'm passionate about youth, young adults, all things that I've done, even from college. Shanae, I graduated from Spelman College in 2018. Most of my work up until that point was focused on justice and juvenile justice specifically. Thought I was going to law school. God said otherwise. And so here I am. But I've been blessed enough to be able to still do both. And so I'm excited to be here.
Super dope.
Awesome.
I love it. Awesome resume. And just for the record, Jillian, I want you to share with the viewers, if you don't mind, how old are you?
I'm 24.
I love it. That is so awesome, right? So you guys know, if you know anything about me, I am absolutely ridiculously passionate about our youth and young adults. And that is one of the reasons why we have such great leadership and so much on the horizon. I think future generations better pay very close attention to these young ladies. And so that being said, I'll hand it over to you, Charity. Go ahead and share with people who you are, what you are passionate about, where you are currently located, and what your end goal is.
Yes, absolutely. Hi, everyone. Charity Chandler Cole, and I'm so blessed to be here with you today. I'm born and raised in Los Angeles, California, and that's where I reside today. I do a lot. So to break it down very short, I'm a social justice advocate, from criminal justice reform to child sex exploitation to foster care. I'm really passionate about changing our child welfare system. I sit on a lot of boards and I do a lot of work at a very high level to help change our policies here in California and across the nation. And I'm also the president of a political action committee called the Black Los Angeles Young Democrats. I'm so excited to hear about your educational goals, Julian, because I too, it's funny, went to college to be a lawyer. God had other plans. I ended up marrying a lawyer, but I did not take that route, got my master's. I'm actually going to start my doctoral program in January to be a doctor of educational leadership for social justice. So I'm extremely excited about that. And my end goal is to really, I'm an abolitionist. Always have been, always will be. And it's important that we abolish these systems that oppress and deteriorate our communities. And so my end goal is to not only change those systems, but to change the way we as Black people, brown people, indigenous people, oppressed people live and operate and move within this space that we've been so controlled in, and making everyone, see their potential and having accountability in who they are, and faith and confidence in their worth in this world. So that's what I want to see happen. So I'm excited to speak with everyone today. This is a conversation. It's not, it's not strict. It's not by the book. Just have a conversation with everyone about what's going on with Rona and riots.
Absolutely. Excellent introductions. I'm pretty sure for those that are viewing and those that will watch the replay, they understand why you two are going to be very instrumental in this discussion today. That being said, those introductions completed, I'm going to go ahead and bring our guests for today on. First and foremost, we have our dude holding it down, Mr. Miles Haynes. Miles, welcome.
Hi, everyone.
Also, we have joining us Miss Asante Dyson. Look, turn your camera on, Sugarfoot. There she is. She is the daughter of my amazing brother friend, Marcus Dyson, the musician, the maestro, Marcus Dyson. And last but not least, my niece, Hadassah Williams. Hadassah, that's Auntie's baby. You got to turn your camera on, Sugarfoot.
Hey, how you doing?
Each of these amazing young people, several different backgrounds, several different sects, but all have very strong opinions according to what I've experienced and what I've been told. Asante, I can't wait to hear your side of the story. You come from some good old stock, child. Nevertheless, listen, I'm going to move out of the way. I'm going to hand it. Jill, you can start it off since you're familiar with kind of how the flow goes. And then I'm going to let you guys do you. Love y'all. I'm in the back.
Thanks, Dion.
Well, I'm so glad again to be here with all of you. For some viewers that caught us last week, we ended on a really awesome note, really just talking about and discussing how people have interpreted this time of quarantine and COVID-19 and a litany of other things, but how that has really influenced the way that we see things going forward, whether we see restoration happening where life, maybe as we knew it, is a semblance of restored, or whether people see that this is going to be a situation that we're kind of in for a little while. We just kind of entertained a lot of different options. But I want to kind of warm us up a little bit to this conversation. And I encourage you all to tell us about yourselves, a little bit more about you. Who are you? What do you do? Where do you go? Where do you frequent? What makes you who you are? And just kind of make yourself known in the space, and we'll continue it that way. We can start with Malik.
With who? I don't think that we heard the name.
Sorry, Asada is fine.
Okay.
I'm sorry, you guys said me?
Yes, that's it correctly. I'm sorry.
Asante, yeah.
Asante.
Okay. I'll go first. Sorry, I couldn't hear. Hi. So I'm Asante, 22. I'm a college student right now. I'm a psychology major at a community college. I'm from Sacramento, California. I was born and raised here. A little about who I am. I would say I'm optimistic. I'm goofy. I like to be around like positive people, positive energy. I sing. And I work too. Gotta work. College life. So I work, and I'll just do my best to create positive energy, and do my best to hang around people that are positive, and I enjoy people's company, and I'm excited for this podcast today. So I guess that's a little about me.
Awesome. Miles, would you like to share with us?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Miles Haynes. I'm a prep school student, not a college student yet. I just graduated from Grand Union High School, and I'm going to a prep school called CPAO. I'm born and raised in Sacramento, California. I wasn't born here, but raised in Sacramento, California. I feel like I'm laid back, but I enjoy the presence of others. I'm artistic. I work as a creative designer for a clothing company based out here in Sac, and yeah, it's my spiel.
Awesome. And then Hadassah, go ahead and share with us.
Okay, my name is Hadassah, and I'm 18. I'm originally from Richmond, California, and I stay in Richmond, California. I am going to Fresno State. I go to Fresno State right now. And I'm going to major in biotech, but I want to minor in African American studies. So, yeah. And a little bit about me is I'm kind of like Mom said, I'm pretty laid back too. I'm super chill. I like to relax, kind of not stress about the small stuff. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'll first just kind of ask each one of you, and Ms. Charity, feel free to start if you want to just kick it off in this way. But how have you personally, we heard from Miles a little bit last week, but I want to know for Asante and Hadassah, how have you all interpreted this time of quarantine, this time of pandemic, both viral and racial? How are you guys dealing with what's going on in the world, and how are you seeing that in your perspective, your reality? We can start with Ms. Charity, and then we'll kind of break off from there.
Yeah, so, and I love this question because different people are experiencing what we're going through different ways, whether you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, or younger. And so it's been an interesting dynamic for me because, one, I'm someone who considers myself to be woke. And so I'm in a constant state of questioning, am I really woke? Because with coronavirus, we've all had the opportunity to really just sit down, sit back, and analyze the world in a way that regardless of our education, our degrees, our networks, our influence, who we're around, we've been able to really judge and see the world for ourselves through our own lens. And of course, there's social media and all these other different mediums that are kind of influencing how we think about what's going on. But we've really had the opportunity to say, wow, this is a hot mess. And so for me in particular, my job, we worked for the first few months, for the first few weeks, and then we, were fortunate to be able to work from home. And while working from home, I'm with my children more. I'm, having to be more involved in their schoolwork, and I'm just so unconnected from everything that I was constantly connected to, the political organizations I'm a part of, the groups and the networks I'm a part of, my job, my employees. And so we were forced, not having sports, not having events, not being able to go anywhere, to really sit back and say that, wow, we're not only in a pandemic where people are dying. Not only are people dying and we're starting to see people around us that have been affected by it, we also have on the opposite side, people completely denying that this is something real. We had an administration that says it was a hoax. And there's so many, and then on top of that, people are judging each other based on how we individually respond to COVID, whether we wear masks, whether we, stocked up for like it's, 2020. I don't know if your experience is doing 2K, but we stocked up because we thought the world was going to end when it was 1999 about to hit 2000. So that's how I responded, because I remember my mom responding like that. So I was like, let's stock the pantry, buy up everything we can. And then while I'm trying to sit there and process COVID-19, how I communicated to my children who are teenagers and toddlers and 7-year-olds, then we have George Floyd. On May 25th, he was killed on my birthday. So we have that. And we knew that, Black people, brown people, indigenous people, but especially Black people were killed at disproportionate and insane rates. And we knew we were starting to see it more on video, but now we were forced to sit there and say, wow. And we were forced to sit there and watch a video that lasted forever of him literally dying before our eyes and crying out for his mom. And we were at a point where we were just not just shocked, but in pain, and then angry, and then infuriated. And we had to figure out, how do we respond individually, collectively in the midst of a pandemic? So I've been feeling, all different types of ways. And I know we'll get into different things we've been doing, actions, et cetera. But I have been just interpreting everything around us as, evidence of how not only divided our nation and our country is, but how uneducated we all are on not just our Black history, on how our government works, on politics, on who to trust, on who to go to when you need support. Because a lot of us realize that, wow, I may or may not have a strong support network during this time, during the time of COVID, when I need to call somebody, I need to talk to somebody who's really there for you and who's also struggling, and how to be there for, your family and your friends and show up for them. So this has been it's been a great awakening for me, a great awakening that I'm using to help reimagine how we not just look at law enforcement, but how we look at our school systems, how we look at, voting and politics, how we look at accountability on our ends to be there and show up for our friends and family, and how we, have expectations for other people to show up for us. So it's just really, it's like kind of like an enlightenment for me, because I'm realizing that as smart and educated and woke I thought I was, boy, was I wrong. And I have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. I think we've all been really forced and put in a position to have a deep sense of self-awareness and reflection during this time. And so it's refreshing to hear that. Hadassah, do you want to start? How have you interpreted this time? What, from your perspective and reality, has kind of come up for you over the last few months?
So kind of reality with quarantine and, COVID and, the Black Lives Matter protests, what I took away from it is lack of communication. We have a lack of communication, a lack of understanding that in order for us to change, we all have to work together. And I feel like these past, couple months, people have started to understand that this is no joke. This is something serious. This is something that we can't, let me not wear a mask. And people are calling everybody out on that. You're not wearing a mask. You're not considering everybody else's feelings, which we've been so long, over time, now that we've had this, not my president, but everybody else's president has been doing this and changing everybody else's perspective. And now it's like, we thinking they going crazy, but he's just bringing out what, they've been hiding. It's stuff that we were supposed to be, been seen. And now, it's so blatant, it's so out in the open that it's not wrong. People think, oh, well, cop lives matter. Well, you don't understand. Cops aren't getting killed at, the same amount of rate as Black people or minorities. They don't have to go and wonder, oh, am I going to get killed? You see a police officer down the street, you get worried. That's what I've taken from, COVID and Black Lives Matter is, lack of communication. We're not getting the same understanding. We're on two different pages. So that's kind of what I took from, the protest and over the months.
I appreciate that perspective. Let's go with Miles, and then we'll come to Asante.
I would say I'm sorry. Can you repeat the question one more time?
Yeah. How have you interpreted COVID-19, racism in this kind of time and era and season, just everything that's happened over the past 7 months in a really concentrated time? How have you kind of interpreted that? What has been your perspective about it all?
My perspective, kind of what I had touched on last week, is still about the lack of perspective that we have from other people that we live around. Lack of perspective of different scenarios, different situations that people go through. From a Black Lives Matter standpoint, from a racial injustice standpoint, understanding perspectives and narratives that we don't always agree with, and that it's tough to hear, sides of stories that we consider wrong, but it takes understanding that perspective in order to better solve the problem, to help solve the problem by knowing what someone else is thinking, what someone else is going through as well. Despite what we may think about it, and I feel like that plays the same role with the pandemic. Understanding the perspective of people who don't think it's real, why they don't think it's real, and also understanding the perspective of people who's going through it on a daily basis, whose parents, grandparents, or even them are in the hospital fighting for their lives. Understanding their perspective as well, and why they probably want you to wear a mask. They probably want you to stay at home, 6 feet, stuff like that. So yeah, I think that this time has really opened my eyes and given me a broader view, and really, I've been really wanting to educate myself, not on just facts and statistics and stuff like that, but the mindsets of other people, what they're thinking, what they're going through, and how they're viewing what's going on right now too. So.
Gotcha. Thank you for that perspective. And Asante, go ahead and share with us.
So originally, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't take this season that we're in very positive. I was kind of just well, because I'm used to being so busy and occupied and stuff, and transitioning with work and working from home and things like that, it was really a challenge at first for me, just emotionally and everything, because it's now my life is suddenly put on pause, and I have to figure out how to step forward and how to keep going forward in life, though I can't really just kind of block everything that's happening around me out in a way. So it was challenging at first, seeing all everything that's going on in the world, and it's a bunch of protests and everything. But I feel I took this season as a season of opportunity instead of becoming depressed about it. I kind of took it, and I would say this has been a really great season for opportunities, as far as people flourishing in their businesses, people learning and developing, trying to really think about the situations that are happening. Okay, what's my perspective of this? How do I feel about this? What is my belief? What is my standpoint about this? And different things like that. And just the whole being an African American woman in America today, it's just that coming to kind of the forefront and being talked about more now. All of that has been really important, but it gave us an opportunity, to, as African American women, to express, how we felt, how, our upbringing of like the things we experienced that were like negative remarks towards our skin colors and stuff like that. So, like I said, I kind of wasn't doing well at first, but I took it as a season of opportunity, to figure out, Asante, what is it that you believe in? Or what is it that you stand for? Like, what's your view of everything that's happening? Although, we live in this generation and stuff, and it's like, society, like, kind of tells you to view things one way, but it's like, what's your standpoint of it? So I think this has been different, very, very different, but also gave us a lot of opportunities and opportunities to change our perspective or realization too for us.
Yeah, I think that's so helpful because I think to the question of interpretation and like how this is kind of shaped and colored people's perspectives, or their perspective has colored how they have dealt with the situation. I think many people have been kind of caught between a rock and a hard place of, is this an opportunity, right? Do I get to sit down and have time with my family? Do I get to work from home? Do I get to take moments to reflect in ways that I otherwise didn't? Or is it something that has really impacted my family, whether I've lost family members to COVID-19, or I'm just so overwhelmed by the pervasiveness of racism and people's unapologetic gall to continue to be white supremacists, et cetera, right? And I love that you offered that, Asante, to just say like, hey, this has been an opportunity for me. And I think for others who have kind of been sitting on both sides of the coin, I think it's helpful. Ms. Charity, you said something that really piqued my interest, and I would love to hear your perspective and your expertise, as well as offer opportunities for our panelists to chime in. But you talked about being woke, and we talked about this concept of being woke and all that it can entail and all that it means. Stay woke. We've got t-shirts, we've got songs, all of these things. And people are like, oh, I'm woke, I don't see color, or I'm woke, I'm sensitive to people's pre-existing conditions, all these things that people try to do to qualify how woke they are. And if you could just kind of share with our audience today a little bit about what that means to you and how you've seen that iterated, and how have you seen people struggle with being woke? Like, what does that mean? I just think it's a super loaded concept, and I'd love for you to share with us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll answer that while answering the question I saw come up of how do you reimagine self-awareness? And for me, we live in social media land, and how we think, our behaviors, how we respond to things, how we respond to people. It's been influenced a lot by, what we see on social media, what we see on TV, what we see on the movies. And sometimes what's real in real life and what's real on social media are two different things. And when you're caught up in these networks, in these groups, and you have these friends or these people you think are your friends, but you really don't know them, and you're constantly seeing what they post, how they comment, and you see someone comments something and then they have a lot of likes. It could be thousands, it could be hundreds, it could be millions. And then that forces you to say, okay, this has to be right. This has to be real because everyone's, it went viral, or someone that I respect posted something, so it has to be true. And so we get in this constant state of believing what we see, believing what we hear. I was told I was woke simply because I was a part of a lot of groups and because I spoke out against something. And I was like, well, damn, I'm sorry, guys, does that really make me woke? And it didn't. And so for me, really reimagining my self-awareness and really deciding for myself if I was woke was having to unplug from social media, which was hard in the midst of, pandemics and racism, two viruses we're struggling with and focusing on. But I knew that if I was going to show up in a way that was impactful to my community and the people that rely on my wokeness, that I had to really unplug and do a self-analyzation, which meant questioning everything, questioning my beliefs, questioning the things I thought about, questioning the degrees I had. Why did I go to school for that? Did someone say it was cool, or was this something that I wanted to do on my own? So I really had to question my purpose, the spaces I were in, the groups I were a part of, the friends I had. And when I did that, I realized that, I didn't know as much as I should have known when it came to my Black history. When I went to school, even the Black history, African-American classes I took were written by people that were not for me, that did not look like me, and that did not contribute to our history and our narrative in a way that allowed us to really see how what happened in the past not is only manifesting today in our society, but how it's impacting our influence, how it's impacting how we show up, how it's impacting the decisions we make. Because a lot of us, especially as millennials, have no idea, what our ancestors, had to fight for. No idea how they showed up for the things we have today. And there was this meme going around that I'm not my ancestor. I will slap the crap out of you or do X, Y, Z. And I'm like, y'all not y'all ancestors, because y'all could have never survived the things they survived. And so I had to really sit back and analyze my history. That meant reading, that meant doing research, that meant buying a bunch of books that were written by people that looked like me, historians and scholars that looked like me, and then really realize, deciding, how does my wokeness impact the world? If my wokeness doesn't impact other people to lead, to question themselves, to question the people around them, to want to do better, then am I really woke? Because being woke, it goes hand in hand with your ability to positively influence other people. And so for me, I had to really step back and just analyze everything. And when I stepped back, I was like, wow, I really don't have that many friends like I thought I had, or I really don't have a lot of people around me that are informing me and sharpening me in a way that's going to contribute to me helping to impact other people and contribute to the purpose I believe I have in my life. And I had to do a real quick reset to make sure that what I'm doing not only benefited my family, but the people around me. And that meant questioning everything, questioning my own implicit bias, questioning why I say Black Lives Matter, because did I really know what Black Lives Matter mean? Did I really know what it people said I don't see color? Because when I first heard people say I don't see color, I was like, okay, I think that's a good thing. And then I was like, hold up, it's not. It's a terrible thing. It's a bad thing. But we're so quick to agree with people if that person we see saying it is someone prestigious or someone in a leadership position, when regardless of who it is, we have to question everyone and everything. And so for me, reimagining my own self-awareness and determining if I was really woke meant unplugging from all the influences, all of the social media and everything that was literally shaping, like, and if there's a documentary on Netflix right now called The Social Dilemma, and it shows you how social media intentionally, teaches us how to behave and how to think and how to act. And so it was important for me to realize that, yeah, I was woke, kind of, but not as much as I thought I was. And becoming self-aware and really just questioning everything. And my, was I on the wrong trajectory? I wasn't too far off, but I was going down a path that could have led me somewhere not very helpful and useful in this world. Deanna, I think you're muted. I see your lips moving.
Yeah, you see my lips moving, my microphone off. I just jumped in. Jillian had she's 3 hours ahead, so her time is different. I just wanted to say thank you to Jillian for taking care and bringing us into that first half, and just to do an appropriate handoff to Charity for the next series of questions for our panel on today. So I just stepped in briefly, but not only is what you said important, I think redefining the word woke individually, independently, very independent of culture and societal norm, based on your own personal core values, is going to be key to what it looks like for each individual, young and old. So that being said, Charity, do you have some questions for our panel on today?
I do have some questions. So Gillian, and actually Hadassah, you made me think of this because you brought up how people interpret Black Lives Matter and this whole notion of Blue Lives Matter. And so I have a big issue with that. And I want to kind of get you guys' take on it because, one, there's a lot of folks that do not understand what we mean by Black Lives Matter. So really educating the masses on that, but also how the saying Blue Lives Matter is in complete contradiction and opposition to what they fight for and fight against when we say Black Lives Matter. Because unless this is Avatar, you guys saw the movie Avatar with the blue people, unless this is Avatar, there aren't blue lives. There are Black lives, there are brown lives, and there are white lives. And so when people get mad because we say Black Lives Matter and they assume that we're saying all lives don't matter, does that mean that Blue Lives Matter is saying that firefighters' lives don't matter, nurses' lives don't matter, pick any trade, any job? Is it saying that their lives don't matter either? Because that's what they're saying. And so what do you guys want to think about, how society is interpreting Black Lives Matter? And how have you been, and if you haven't been, it's fine. But how have you, what are some of the challenges you're seeing in helping people understand what that means, and some of the responses you've been getting from people? Like, are people getting it or understanding it in the communities and the networks that you're in? Because that's something that's been really frustrating me, is having to constantly explain that to people.
Well, in the area or in my environment, it seems like everyone is understanding what Black Lives Matter means. And I hang around like Asian, white, like I hang around different types of people, but it seems like they all have an understanding of what it is. And I think for the people that sit here and they like, they make like they turned the Black Lives Matter movement into such a negative thing. I think it's because they want it to be a negative thing. I feel like it's something positive, and if you aren't sure about what the meaning behind it is, or you take it in a negative way, I think you should go look on the news. You should go look at the headlines, go look at certain things that are going on, and then ask questions, because like people that are negative or want to take things in a negative way, they just that's what they are choosing to do, when in fact the movement itself is a positive thing, and it's meant to just shed light and be like a positive thing. It's not anything negative in my perspective. And so I think that people that take it that way and they're like, oh, all lives matter, or taking it into another way, it's like what they want to do. Like they want to turn it into a negative thing. So I kind of just like, it's frustrating dealing with those kind of people, but it's like, okay, like, I mean, you're not asking for clarity on what's going on. So then you don't, that's not what you want. So it's just like, I don't know.
Exactly. What about you, Hadassah?
So with me, I have a lot of white friends. I used to go to school with a lot of, well, not white, Caucasians, you know. I used to go to school with a lot of them, and I know their viewpoint is really different from mine. I feel like Blue Lives Matter is a protest against our protest. It's not helping our protest, it's conflicting with it. It's causing even more problems, because before, Blue Lives Matter, it was Black Lives Matter. Blue Lives Matter didn't come about until Black Lives Matter came. Until we start saying the police need to be, tried, they need to be convicted, justice needs to come. And then here come people with the, oh, you guys don't care about police officers. Well, you have to think about the statistics and everything. Well, you have to remember, when we're fighting for our color, we're fighting for our freedom, something that, is a natural born right, a natural, God-given right that we were already supposed to have. We're land of the free, but we're not free at all. It shouldn't be, years later that we're still on this, on this topic. Just like, officers won't respect, we won't respect too. We want, our lives to be, involved, thought about. Because at the end of the day, we're scared. Just as much as they're scared, we're scared. But they have, weapons of warfare on them. We don't have that.
Right.
And they swear up and down because we're Black that we have. So they automatically take us as a threat. Not every police officer, but the ones who are crook, the ones who are just, one-sided. Because there's police officers that sit there and take the time to understand how we feel. We get arrested, they understand, okay, you're scared because it happens. Look at all the people who died because of a police officer. We're terrified. It could be a traffic ticket, it could be anything. Just if you pull off to the side, you don't want to be there too long, because what if a police officer comes and, oh, hey, what you're doing, and here go another problem. Why are you here? Where's your license? Everything. We can't just be ourselves. So for all lives, all lives matter, or Blue Lives Matter to come and, during this time, it's disrespectful. It by no means is it, they care about us. It's disrespect. So yeah.
Thank you, Hadassah. What about you, Miles?
I think that it's Black Lives Matter is like such a misunderstood topic, and it's so misunderstood that people found the need to find something to undermine it within Black Lives Matter. But in my community, the people, I talk to, they have a pretty good understanding of like our cause, our purpose. And I feel like even other minorities know that, like, that other minorities that stand with us, they know that this doesn't mean that Asian lives don't matter. This doesn't mean that Hispanic lives don't matter. We're just focused right now. We're focused on the main problem right now, and that's Black lives at this moment. And that doesn't take away from any other race, creed, color, or anything like that. It's just that we've had enough, and this is our time and our climax to where, like, we have to make change. And I know you guys have heard of the burning building analogy that people post everywhere, and I feel like it just hits home for me. And I'll say it for those who haven't heard it. It's like a bunch of people put it different ways, but basically there's houses in the neighborhood. One house is on fire. Everyone is saying, this house matters. It's on fire. We're trying to let's all come together and put the fire out on this house. And someone is like, well, what about my house? Why aren't we pouring water on my house? And it's not because your house doesn't matter, because your house isn't in the neighborhood. It's because this house is on fire. This house needs help. And that really hit home for me, like explaining what Black Lives Matter really means, and how I explain it to others who don't understand. And one thing that I had to understand is that people who don't agree with Black Lives Matter or understand Black Lives Matter doesn't necessarily mean that they are against Black people. They just don't, because a lot of them are around people who actually don't like Black people. So that's the trend they kind of follow, because they don't know any different. Like they're not educated from another perspective to know why we say that. You know what I mean? And exactly. Like sometimes you have to like kind of give people like a space of grace, because some people who don't agree genuinely just don't know why we say that. And they're just assuming that we don't think that anybody else's lives matter and that we're just selfish. And it just takes a conversation. You know what I mean? Like, especially with the Blue Lives Matter. One of my dad's great friends is a police officer. And like, it's not that his life doesn't matter. Like, that's not the case. Like, he's not Black, but I love him just how if he was Black. But I'm not saying that his life doesn't matter because he has on a badge and has a gun on his hip. And it just takes a conversation. It just takes a conversation to educate people on the reasoning, because a lot of people just don't understand. And we have to keep speaking out and keep being verbal and keep marching and being activists, just so that we can get people to understand what we're going through, why we get scared every time the blue and red lights flash behind us, why our heart drops when police officers pass by, why we sometimes get scared going out late. Like you said, when we just pull over to the side of the road, we got to hurry up because we don't want the police officers to stop and question us and whatever the case may be. So yeah.
100%, 100%. And I love that you gave that analogy, because it's important for people to understand what we mean. And I found myself in a lot of spaces where I've even had, Latinx people and other races not fully understand what that meant or even try to understand. And it's like you said, all about asking questions. And I'm gonna drop another analogy for folks that may be watching and listening and may still not really understand what we mean by Black Lives Matter. So I'm going to take you to school, use a little bit of math here. And if we have, let's say 1 + 1 + 1, what does that equal? It's a whole number, 3, right? 1 + 1 + 1 = 3. So if we have Black lives, white lives, and brown lives, just using those 3 as an example, equals all lives. So if we say all lives matter, but Black lives don't matter, do all lives really matter? So yes, we agree that all lives matter. But if we only have 1 + 1, are we going to get to 3? If only 2 lives matter, hypothetically speaking, do all lives matter? So all we're saying is, yes, we agree that all lives matter. But in order for all lives to matter, Black lives have to matter, brown lives have to matter, Indigenous lives have to matter, white lives have to matter. And if any one of those groups do not matter, then all lives do not matter. So for those people that proclaim that all lives matter, they should be joining our fight against racism, because it's not Black people against white people, it's everybody against racism. And in order for 1 + 1 + 1 to equal 3, all of those equations have to be there. All of those numbers have to be there. And so as we talk about racism in our country, it's one thing to say, I'm not racist. And it's another thing to be anti-racist. Anti-racist means going completely, going against and in opposition of racism. It means when we have friends and family say racist things to us, or we have coworkers that joke about something being racist, to be, whether we're Black, brown, white, Indigenous, whatever, how are we making sure that we don't condone that behavior? How are we making sure we stand up to racism and saying, hey, that's not funny. I found myself in positions as a Black person where I would have friends or people I worked with say something racist and I would giggle. And I think we've all been there where we're like, that little, embarrassed giggle. And so I've been intentional about making sure that I say, no, that's not funny. That's actually racist. And they're like, what? And so when we talk about accountability, when we talk about being woke, when we talk about what can we do differently as Black people, as all people, to make sure that we are not only racist ourselves, that we not only check our own implicit bias, meaning that we all have things about us that we were born with that are kind of a part of us and who we are, that we have to check on a daily basis to make sure we're not, disrespecting someone, negatively affecting someone, that we're not hurting people, and that we're intentional about checking our bias and checking ourselves, but also going beyond that to not be to be anti-racist, meaning checking others, but doing so in a way that helps to inform them, helps to educate them, that's not aggressive, or and allows them to not be so defensive. So have you guys experienced situations where you've been able to show up, to show people how to be anti-racist? Because I think it starts with us. I think in order for other people to show up for us, they have to see us kind of showing up for ourselves. It's very sad, and I hate to say that, because we should not have to teach people how to not be racist. We should not have to educate folks on what racism means and how we're affected by it, because y'all learned our culture real quick. Y'all learned how to put cornrows in your head real quick, and how to take our music and our down to our body parts. Y'all learned that real quick. So we shouldn't have to teach you how to be anti-racist. But something I'm doing using the many platforms that I have is to call people out on their racism and do it in a way that allows them to say, oh crap, Charity, that stung a little, but I know you respect me. I know you want what's best for me. And it's a very uncomfortable conversation to have. So how have you either helped to perpetuate that within our communities, or have seen other people do it, or maybe we'll do it later on, because it's a challenge that we all have to, take on within ourselves, to call people out when they're being racist, but do it in a way that's from a place of love and education? Who wants to start? Asante?
I can go first, but I'm not gonna lie. So I'm very sweet, mellow, friendly, all those things. But when it comes to like the disrespect like that, then I become like more of a like attitudes a person or an aggressor. So I guess I could work on like being more intentional and more like, I'm a loving person, but when it comes to stuff like that, I just don't know how to handle it. I'm like, no, absolutely not. And so I'm just like automatically like become aggressive. So I guess I could work on that. I haven't had to deal with that like anytime. Like recently and stuff. I see it on like social media and stuff like that, but people say anything from fake pages and comments and stuff. Like it's like
Yes.
it's like that's different. But I haven't like had a hand-in-hand experience. I know there's people in my life, like my grandma, for instance, that had experienced something racist like within the last few months. And you know, like I guess being the environment I'm around and the bloodline I come from, like no one's really calm about that kind of stuff. Like even her experiencing that, she wasn't really calm. So
Mhm.
I mean, it's not about being calm, I guess. It's just about handling it the right way, or people not knowing that they're being racist and things like that. But I haven't experienced a situation where I needed to basically, like, they didn't know and I had to handle it in a manner like that. But I guess I could work on it and prepare myself because people don't care, and I don't want to be put in a situation where I have to get outside of my character because I'm disrespected by someone who has this perspective of being racist or whatever the case may be. So yeah, I guess that's something I could work on, and thank you for bringing that up because yeah, I haven't really thought about that recently, and I
And
should
it's
be
something
thinking
you
about
have to learn because I was snatched wigs real quick and I had to learn to, you know,
it.
let me drop some knowledge.
Yeah.
Maybe they really don't know. Some of them do know, and there's a lot of people that are racist and they know it and they're happy about it and they'll wear the flag and everything to show it. But then there are some people also that really don't know and don't understand. And so, you know, I think as we educate them, that we're intentional, we're forceful, but we also want to do it from a place where they leave that experience. The ones that don't know, having gained something from it and wanting to be very actionable on their end of not being racist in the future are checking their racism and bias. Absolutely. Someone said racism means check it at the door, and you have to, because oftentimes we let it go. We let it slide, depending on who it is. Especially for me, I was at work. It was in these commissions and committees I was in, and being around people that had status that was higher than me. I've been in positions where I thought I would lose my job, but I had to check. You know, I had to check. I checked my boss recently, you know, who's not racist at all, who's just very privileged, and had no idea some of the things he said was racist. And I was like, look at that implicit bias showing. And he was like, what? And I'm like, let me tell you about it. And he took it. It was very, he took it very respectfully. He said, no one ever told me that before. I was like, well, yeah, you're kind of the vice president. I don't think anybody will tell you, but I need to tell you that this is not okay and how it made me feel. And he, you know, white man took it, you know, very well. And I was a little shocked. And so, but we'll be surprised at how some people will take it the right way, but they just don't know. And now what we did was saved another Black person from having that uncomfortable experience who may not be in a position to tell their boss that, yo, that's racist. So anyone else?
Charity, I think what you said really hit home for me because I think that's something that I'm trying to work on. Like my delivery as I tell someone, hey, like that's not okay. You know what I mean? Because it's really easy to just go off. But like I've realized that when you go off on someone for being racist, they don't get anything out of it. If from there it turns emotional and not educational. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
Now they're more focused on like you disrespecting than the reason why y'all are having that conversation in the first place. So,
Exactly.
And then that just distracts them from the whole conversation and turns something totally different. So I think personally, that's one of the things I want to work on, like how to better tell someone, how to like not pull somebody to the side, but like how to address someone and tell them, like, especially when it's like somebody you're cool with, like somebody you hang out with, someone you call a friend, without being stern and being like serious, but still like getting your point across in a manner that won't ruin the relationship. So yeah.
That was a good point that you made. And it kind of just like set in my brain. I was like, oh, that's a good point. About like, you know, you being aggressive to the person, they might not accept it as like they're not listening to what you said. They're just it's probably gonna go in one ear, not the other, versus you sitting there and you're saying like, hey, like this is not cool, ABCD. Let me teach you at the same time as like correct you at the same time. And so it's kind of like, okay, now you gonna leave knowing this is like, you gonna leave with something on your brain basically, versus yelling at them instead. It's probably just gonna like, it's just gonna be back and forth. So that was good.
Yeah. I agree. And in the comments, someone asked, what is racism? And I think it's important to answer this question, because if we don't understand what racism is, we will have a hard time acknowledging it when it shows up and then dismantling it. And so for me, and I know we're short on time, but I really want to break down for our audience, what racism is. And there's a lot of types of racism, but I want to focus on structural and individual racism. So structural racism, what we see, when we look at prisons and the foster care system, in jobs and the way institutions are set up, it's a system in which public policies, institutional practices, cultural representations, and other norms work in various, often reinforcing ways to perpetuate a racial group and inequity. It's primarily characterized by white supremacy, to put it frankly, and it's the preferential treatment, privilege, power, access, and opportunities of white people at the expense of cumulative and chronic adverse outcomes for people of color. It encompasses the entire system of white supremacy, and it's diffused and infused in all aspects of our society, such as our laws, our history, our culture, our politics, our economics, and our entire social fabric. And then when you think of individual racism, it refers to an individual's racist assumptions, beliefs, or behaviors. And it's a form of racial discrimination that stems from conscious and unconscious personal prejudice. It includes examples such as telling a racist joke. And oftentimes those are reinforced by microaggressions when we say different things about subgroups, like, oh, you speak English very well, to a Hispanic person, or, oh, your name is Charity and not Ebony. I thought you were white when I talked to you on the phone, not even realizing that's what they were doing. Are believing in the inherent superiority of white people over other racial groups, are not hiring a person of color because something just doesn't feel right, or because their name sounds too ghetto. And it's often seen as a bias that can be fixed or corrected, and it's really not. It's really something that stems from institutional racism. So in order to really dismantle racism, and something we're seeing in our society right now, is that people are refusing to admit that racism actually exists. And that's where my problem comes in. And when we deny racism existence, we're denying and undermining the actual experiences that people have had, that our ancestors have had, that are hurtful and harmful and even deadly. And how we as a society identify with race is extremely powerful, and it influences our experiences, it shapes our behaviors, and it determines how we show up in the world. And our society not only privileges white people, but there is a possessive investment in whiteness that prioritizes white people and white property over others, from education to politics to housing. If you look at what we're voting for right now, we're voting for affirmative action. We're voting to say, hey, I just want an equal opportunity with jobs and with education. We're voting so that people that have been criminalized, incarcerated, mainly Black, brown, and brown people, can vote so that their voices can be heard. So it's important that whether you're watching right now, Black, brown, white, or whatever, how do we acknowledge racism and just admit that it exists? We just saw the vice presidential debate, and they refused to admit that racism is real, that implicit bias is real. And we can't do that because it's hurtful and harmful to people like me who have experienced it, people like y'all who have experienced it, who I'm a professional with degrees and I make a lot of money. And I am terrified when the police get behind me, because they're not going to see this educated person that's involved in politics and that's out here helping to change the world. They're going to see a Black person. They're going to see a Black woman, and Black women are not valued. And that scares the crap out of me. And I'm afraid for my children's lives. And racism is real. So it's just important that to know that no one is born a racist. You were not born a racist. This is something that you learned from either your parents or your grandparents or school or television. And it's important that we just own it and say, my bad. I'm sorry. It's wrong. And I'm going to work on not being racist every day. And that we say, hey, can you let me know if I do something that hurts you? Can you let me know what you mean by Black Lives Matter? Instead of making assumptions about what we do and what we're fighting for. Y'all, we don't have time to fight out here. We trying to keep on to our little low paid jobs and trying to get these little degrees so that we can be like y'all and have, and fight for the things you guys get so easily. We're not trying to be out here protesting during a virus if it didn't mean something, if we didn't think our lives weren't valued. So we are literally putting our lives at risk during the coronavirus, because racism kills more of us every day than coronavirus does. So we're out here fighting for our lives. So we just want y'all to acknowledge and question, why are they doing it? And ask us, don't ask the other people, ask us, what does this mean? How are you impacted? How can I help? How can I use my privilege? Tell me what you need, and that's what we need. And so that's why what I encourage everyone listening today is to exercise your privilege. Even if you're Black, some of us Black folks have privilege. As a Black person, I have privilege that a lot of other Black people don't have. And how do I use that privilege to help educate other Black people, to help other Black people, to help white people, to help brown people? Because at the end of the day, we need each other. And racism is real. It's real. And I'm not sure how much time we have. Let me see, because I got another question. How much time we got, Deanna? I want to ask y'all one more question, and I know we're almost at the mark, but in regards to, I know this topic is Rona and riots, and I personally have an issue with the term riot, because riots is when people, win a hockey game and they go out there burning up cars and messing up buildings and acting crazy because somebody done won the hockey championship. When what we're doing on the street, fighting for our lives, protesting, is an uprising. We're fighting for a cause. We're fighting for the cause called life, our Black lives. What do you guys feel about riots and protesting, and more so how people have stolen this narrative of us fighting for our lives and turned it into something bad?
I could touch on that subject because during the protest, I went to Oakland, and I seen how people were peacefully protesting, and because it's not considered riot unless you're violent, and they were peacefully protesting. They were outside one of the big buildings. I forgot what building it was, but they were right in front of it, and I think it was somebody's office. They were outside of it. They was outside of and they were outside of it, and all you see is police officers lining up. We're not even moving past. We're 6 feet. We're more than 6 feet, past 6 feet, and here they go with guns. They're coming out of squad cars way down the street and running down here. We're not violent. We don't have guns out. We have our fist up. We have our mask on. We're sitting here calling for change. We're not sitting here, shoot at us, do something. We're not antagonizing, the aggressor. We're not sitting here like, yeah, I want to be shot. Mm-hmm. We're sitting here like we won't change. We won't change around us. And they don't understand that, with riots, even back then, even when Martin Luther King was alive, it wasn't considered a riot. It was a protest. He said, we're peacefully protesting. It only became a riot when the police got out there with weapons and started pepper spraying, and tear gassing, and shooting everybody with water and, big old fire hoses. These are supposed to put out fires, and you're spraying us with water. Right. Stuff like that. We're not rioting, we're protesting. It's something peaceful. It's a different meaning behind riot, and it's a different meaning behind protesting. And I feel like with Black Lives Matter, we were protesting until they made it into a riot. And then here go people, they're getting their license, their gun license, and they're, strapping up and getting ammunition, because we're at this point, it's no longer in the police hands. We can't trust the police. Now we have to do what the Black Panthers been doing, protecting themselves. We have to protect ourselves. Something that we shouldn't have to do. Their job is to protect and serve. We shouldn't have to protect our people like we're the cops. We're not getting paid to protect they're getting paid. Our tax dollars, all the money that we're pouring into the government is going into them to protect us. That's not what they're doing. We're protecting ourselves. We shouldn't have to. We should live just like they, they should, just as much protection as they should. Security.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more, Hadassah. Do either one of you want to chime in before we close? No pressure.
Yeah, I'll chime in. I'm gonna be quick so she gets a chance as well. But I think that the narrative of a riot makes it easier to suppress because it's illegal to. It's illegal. It's our First Amendment right in the Constitution to peacefully assemble.
Right.
But once, and it's not even always us, the crowd of people, once someone flips a car over, breaks a window, then that isn't the right to peacefully assemble. Now they have a reason to undermine why we're even out there and make arrests, shoot people with the rubber bullets that are the size of people's fists, and stuff like that. And I feel like it's kind of like a strategy of oppression to like undermine our voice and take our voice away by trying to flip our narrative and and then like not only flip our narrative, but then push the law against us and say, well, you guys aren't using your First Amendment right because this, that, and the third. So.
Facts. That's exactly what they're doing. It all comes down to language and the terminology they use. So 100%. Do you want to add anything, Asante? I think you're muted still. You're muted, Asante.
Oh, sorry. I just have a short response. It's not going to be too much, but I just feel like, as far as that, I just feel like, shouldn't they be happy that we're coming like peacefully? Because the situations that's happening, it's not something you even want to come peaceful like about. Like, that's ridiculous. But you got a group of people that's frustrated, angry, tired, like, so you know that you poking or doing anything, even as a police officer, in the wrong way is going to push us to get aggressive. You know that that's what's going to transpire if you do anything, because we already got to get ourselves together to even come to try to do this in a peaceful way. Like, that on its own is a lot. Like, and I just feel like they're just it's just like, I feel like they're coming and they're provoking and stuff like that, and I don't know, they don't want us to protest at all, even if it is peacefully. So I say we keep protesting and peacefully protesting and doing it the way we do it. We don't have to do the violence part, but you know, I say keep protesting.
And like Asante said, be happy we're protesting. Be happy we're not seeking revenge, because we're owed. We're owed so much. And I want to close with saying that Black lives matter. Yes, all lives matter, but Black lives is a part of all lives. And that means how our administration responds to coronavirus, how our administration responds to racial injustice, to police brutality. And what we have now as a form of peaceful protesting is showing up to vote. And I can't stress this enough. And I'm saying this because I have two beautiful kids on here, you know, Miles and Hadassah, who you get to vote for the first time in a very major presidential election. You are so lucky and so fortunate, and we are so lucky and fortunate to have young people voting. And we unfortunately see people under 40 just not as engaged, and especially young folks not voting and participating in their democracy as much as they can. So what we have to do, what we have an opportunity to do right now to have our voices heard, to have our power heard and felt, is through voting. And I say why? Because we have a person in the White House who, I don't want to say the devil himself,
Is a nut.
I'm trying to be church-like, but he's perpetuating racism in our country. He's the reason why there's so many people out here being very bold and bodacious and have the audacity to come out the way they are with their racism. They are unapologetic in their racism. Our lives are on the ballot this year, guys. The ability for our brothers and sisters to vote post-incarceration is on the ballot this year. Our health is on the ballot this year. Women's rights is on the ballot this year. And we need to make sure that we exercise our right to vote, that we get engaged, that we understand and do the research on who we're electing, what the propositions are, what the ballot initiatives are, because it's so important that we get these people out of the White House that want to profit off of our oppression. I don't care what they say. They want to profit off of our oppression. It's very profitable to dismantle our families, to oppress us, to incarcerate us, to make us the bad guys when we're fighting for our lives. It's very profitable. And we're living in an era of modern day slavery in the form of incarceration, in the form of cultivating the next generation of inmates through our foster care system. And so it's extremely important that we take back our power. We not only vote, but we step up and get into leadership positions, that we run for office, that we not only demand a seat at the table, but we pull a folding chair up, or we create the table ourselves, because we are smart, we are amazing, we are worthy, and they're afraid of that. They're terrified of that. So let's show them just how powerful we are, how peaceful and powerful we are by voting, by not undermining our worth in this world, by not allowing anyone to tell us that we can't be anything or do anything, and understanding that the road to yes is paved with no's. So you're going to hear a lot of no's along the way. You're going to hear a lot of things along the way to discourage you, but you guys are bright. I'm talking to you three right here. You guys are bright. You guys are beautiful. I enjoyed having a conversation today with such amazing young talent. You guys are our leaders, our generation's leaders, and we need you guys. The world needs to hear the power that you guys have, the way you articulate your thoughts and how you feel. Like, the world needs this. So I'm just so grateful to have you guys here today, educating the masses, and thank you all for attending Rona and Riots, and we hope to see you again. Peace, y'all.
All right. Bye.
Oh, Dion, you're muted.
You're muted. Sounded good, though.
Yeah, I felt it. I felt it.
I just don't have the Holy Ghost. That's the reason you couldn't hear me for real. That's all it really is. That being said, I just want to take a moment and tell you, Charity, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule. I know that your schedule is quite hectic. You are absolutely appreciated. To Miles for being here squared. I appreciate you, young man. Thank you for your strong opinions. Thank you for being so poignant and relevant in discussing issues and how they are impacting you. Hadassah, out there in the wilderness, you could have said, Auntie, listen, I'm busy. I ain't going to be able to do it. To Miss Asante, thank you so much for showing up and you guys actually contributing majorly to the conversation. I pray that something that was said would just remind you of how important you are, how valuable the things that you have to say are, and how it absolutely matters. And while Black lives matter, Blue lives matter, and everybody's lives matter, listen here, honey child, y'all lives matter, each and every one of you. So I thank God for you and for this process. I'm going to bring Tan in right quick. And ladies and gentlemen, I wish you guys would check the chat for me, young people, as I pull you guys out. And take a look at the question asked in there and handle that. So listen, I love you guys. Y'all hang out in the back. Make sure you check the chat and I'll send you a message. Promise.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Hey guys, I just wanted to personally thank you. They gone.
No, they can hear you.
They can hear me?
They can.
Okay, I just wanted to personally thank you for taking the time out to help me realize my dream, which was to allow your voice to be heard. And the folks that helped me to sponsor this loved what you did last week, and they promoted it in their newsletter and with their constituents as well. So I really want you to know how much I appreciate you. If you have Venmo or Apple Pay, Venmo or Apple Pay, that would be great. But I'll also, I want to send you a little something, but Cash App is fine. I prefer Venmo or Apple Pay though, if you have it. All right. Thank you guys.
All right, I'm pulling you out, Tan, so you can continue to drive. She literally pulled over on the side of the road to make sure that she was able to wish the kids, bid them adieu. And so I just want to again say thank each of you for your support and encouraging the kids as they have gone forth with their passions through their process with Corona and Riots, or so we call it, Rona and Riots. I thank each of you that took the time to share the platform, to invite a friend. You are absolutely appreciated, probably more than you know. Thanks for allowing your children, to each of you, to Marcus, to Renee, to Angela, and to who else was here last week? Oh, and to the Colemans for sharing your youth and young adults with us. It has been an absolute pleasure. It says a whole bunch about what they come from and what was contributed to them in their lives. And so I thank you all for their participation. You are greatly appreciated. And again, to Jillian Lee, listen, thanks, Jillian, for being so accommodating with the time difference and just in going through the process. So that being said, listen, guys, thanks so much for joining us for the second session of Rona and Riots. I'm sure you'll hear again from Miss Charity Chandler Cole and from Jillian Lee in the very near future. You guys have an amazing day. Don't forget to share this broadcast with your youth or young adult. We'll see you next time. Have an amazing, amazing rest of your Sunday. Bye, guys.